the holding cell wire of fear and desperation. Kaya pressed herself against the cold metal wall, her violet skin bearing fresh bruises from the guard's discipline. Her golden eyes, once bright, with the joy typical of her people, now stared hollow and unfocused. At the grimy floor, they had always been a peaceful species. Their world knew no weapons, no violence, only harmony with nature and each other. That innocence had made them perfect targets when the raiders came. 3 weeks had passed since the attack on her colony ship, 3 weeks since she'd watched her family torn away. Since she'd been shoved into this nightmare of chains and cages, the other captives around her, beings from a dozen different worlds, had stopped trying to comfort each other. Hope was a luxury none of them could afford. Next lot. The auctioneer's voice boomed through the station's speakers, causing several prisoners to flinch. Xerion Prime was notorious throughout the Outer Rim as a place where anything could be bought if you had enough credits and no conscience. The slave market was just one of its many dark offerings. Heavy boots echoed in the corridor as guards approached, their cell Ka's heart hammered against, her ribs when the energy barrier flickered. Often rough hands grabbed her arms. "Your turn, pretty one." One guard sneered, his breath reeking of synthetic alcohol. The auction chamber was a grotesque theater of commerce. Dozens of buyers filled the tiered seating. Smugglers, crime lords, wealthy perverts, and worse, their hungry eyes followed Kaya as she was dragged onto the platform. Shackled wrists raised above her head by a mechanical arm. The harsh spotlights made her squint, but she kept her gaze down, trying to disappear inside herself. "Here we have a prime specimen," the auctioneer announced with practiced enthusiasm. Young Vani female, approximately 22 standard years. Note the exotic coloring, the unblemished skin, despite recent conditioning. Doxal species, naturally submissive, perfect for domestic service or personal companionship. The bidding started immediately. Ka tried to block out the voices, the casual way they discussed her like livestock. She'd seen this happen to others, watched them break down as their fate was decided by strangers. She wouldn't give them that satisfaction. 7,000, 10,000 credits. A new voice cut through the crowd, deeper, rougher than the others. 15,000. The chamber fell quiet for a moment. Kaya risked a glance up and saw him, a human man in his 40s, wearing a worn leather jacket over a simple shirt. His dark hair was strewn with gray, his face weathered by years of spaceflight. But it was his eyes that caught her attention. Steel blue and intense, but not with the predatory hunger she'd expected. There was something else there. Something she couldn't identify. "Sold to Captain Blackwood," the auctioneer declared after. No counterbid came. As the guards released her shackles and pushed her toward her new owner, Ka felt the familiar crushing weight of despair. Another master, another hell. But when the human Jonas, Blackwood, looked at her, he didn't smile with satisfaction or ownership. Instead, he simply nodded once, as if acknowledging her as a person rather than property. "Come on," he said, quietly, his voice surprisingly gentle. "Let's get you out of here." Something in his tone made her stumble slightly as she followed him from the auction block, but she quickly pushed down the dangerous flutter of hope before it could take root and cause her more pain. The starbound Hope was unlike any ship Kaya had seen during her captivity, where the slavers' vessels had been cramped, filthy, and reeking of desperation. Jonas's ship was clean and well-maintained. The corridors were wide enough to walk without constantly bumping into others, and actual windows showed the stars beyond instead of blank metal walls. Ka followed Jonas through the ship, every muscle tense and ready for the inevitable moment when his facade would drop and reveal his true intentions. They always started gentle, the buyers. It made the cruelty that followed even more devastating. "This will be your quarters," Jonas said. Stopping at a door that slid open with a soft hiss, Kaya stepped inside cautiously, her eyes widening despite herself. The room was small but comfortable. A real bed with clean sheets, a small desk, and a viewport showing the swirling colors of hyperspace. The door locks from the inside. Jonas added quietly, "You're the only one with the code." Ka stared at him, confusion wearing with suspicion. "I don't understand. You're not my property, Ka." Her name sounded strange coming from his lips, not like a command or an objectification, but like an acknowledgement of her personhood. "You're not anyone's property. What happened to you was wrong, and I'm going to make sure it never happens again." Why, the word came out as barely a whisper. "What do you want from me?" Jonas leaned against the doorframe, his expression serious but kind. Nothing I want, nothing from you except for you to heal and decide what you want to do with your life. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. I'm part of a network, humans and aliens working together to stop the slave trade. We buy captives when we can rescue them when possible and work to shut down the entire operation. Ka sank onto the edge of the bed, her legs suddenly weak. You're lying. Humans don't do things like that. Not for aliens. Some humans are monsters, Jonas acknowledged, but not all of us I've seen. What slavery does to the victims, to entire species, it has to stop. He stepped back into the corridor. There's food in the replicator, medical supplies in the drawer. Get some rest. We'll be traveling for a few days. After he left, Kaya sat in stunned silence. The door had indeed sealed with her on the inside, just as he'd promised. She could hear his footsteps retreating down the corridor, but no sound of guards being posted outside her room. Hours passed before she dared to explore if the replicator produced actual food, not the nutrient paste she'd grown accustomed to. The medical supplies were real, too, including healing gel for her bruises and cuts. When exhaustion finally overtook her suspicions, she found, thawed softer than anything she'd slept on since her capture. She woke to gentle knocking rather than shouted commands or electronic shocks. I brought breakfast. Jonas's voice came through the door. You don't have to let me in if you don't want to. When she opened the door, he stood holding a tray with what smelled like actual cooked food. His eyes took in her appearance with concern but no possessiveness. How are you feeling? Confused? She admitted. Jonas smiled. The first genuine smile she'd seen from a human in weeks. That's understandable. Would you like to eat together? I thought maybe you'd want company, but if you prefer to be alone, company, she said quickly, surprising herself. Company would be nice. They ate in her room, Jonas telling her about the stars they were passing and the world she'd visited in his travels. He asked about her home, her family, her life. Before, not with the clinical interest of someone cataloging property, but with genuine curiosity about her as a person. The Vani settlements were beautiful, Kaya found herself saying. We lived in harmony with the forest, our homes grown from living trees. Music was everywhere. We communicate as much through song as through words. Her voice caught. I haven't sung since. Maybe someday you will again. Jonah said softly, when you're ready. For the first time in weeks, Ka felt the dangerous stirring of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this human was different. Maybe not all of them were monsters after all. 3 weeks aboard the starbound Hope had transformed. Kai, in ways she'd never expected. The constant fear that had gripped her chest was slowly loosening its hold, replaced by something she'd thought lost forever. Curiosity about the world around her. Jonas had been patient with her healing, never pushing, always giving her choices. Would you like to see the star charts today? He asked over breakfast, as had become their routine. She looked forward to these meals together, finding comfort in his steady presence and gentle conversation. Yes, she said, her voice stronger now than the whisper it had been weeks ago. I'd like that very much. The navigation room was Jonas's favorite place on the ship. She'd learned star charts covered every surface, marked with notes in his careful handwriting, routes, safe harbors, places to avoid, a lifetime of careful exploration mapped out in blue ink. This is where we are now, Jonas said, pointing to a cluster of stars near the rim. His hand accidentally brushed hers as he reached for another chart, and Kaya felt an unexpected warmth at the contact. And this, he indicated, a distant system, is where we're heading next. There's another auction happening there in 5 days. Kaya's blood chilled. You're taking me to another auction? No, Jonas said quickly, turning to face her fully. Never. I'm going to try to rescue others like I rescued you. You'll stay on the ship safe and hidden. Relief flooded through her, followed immediately by another emotion she hadn't expected: concern for his safety. It's dangerous, isn't it, what you do? Jonas nodded, his expression serious. Sometimes, but it's worth the risk. He studied her face with those blue eyes that had become so familiar. Every person we save is worth it. What if something happens to you? The question escaped before she could stop it, revealing more than she'd intended about how much his well-being had come to matter to her. Something shifted in Jonas's expression. Surprise. then something warmer. Would that concern you? Heat rose in Kaya's cheeks, her violet skin darkening with what humans called a blush. Yes, it would concern me greatly. The air between them seemed charged, suddenly full of possibilities. Neither had dared voice. Jonas took a step closer, his hand rising as if to touch her face, then stopping. Kay, I need you to know I would never take advantage of your situation. You're vulnerable, grateful, and those feelings might be confused with something else. I won't. What if they're not confused? She interrupted, her heart pounding. What if what I feel is real? His hand finally completed its journey, cupping her cheek with infinite gentleness. What do you feel? Safe? She whispered. For the first time since the attack, I feel safe. But, more than that, I feel alive when you're near. When you smile at me, when you ask about my world, when you treat me like I matter. She leaned into his touch. I think I'm falling in love with you. Jonas's breath caught Ka. I know the difference between gratitude and love, she said firmly. My people made for life, Jonas. We don't give our hearts lightly. What I feel for you isn't obligation or trauma, it's choice, my choice. He leaned down slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away until his forehead rested against hers. I've been fighting these feelings for weeks, he admitted, telling myself it was wrong that you couldn't truly consent while you're still healing. Then let me show you, she whispered, rising on her toes to close the distance between their lips. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, but when she didn't pull away, when she instead pressed closer, it deepened into something beautiful and desperate. Weeks of careful distance crumbled as they held each other, finally acknowledging what had been growing between them. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, caressed at her head against his chest and listened to his heartbeat. I want to help, she said. With the rescues, I want to be your partner in this, not just someone you protect. Jonas's arms tightened around her. It's dangerous, so is loving you, she said with a small smile. But some things are worth the risk. He pulled back to look at her, and in his eyes, she saw not just desire but respect, partnership, and something that might, in time, become lover-turned. Then we'll face those risks together. The weeks that followed their first kiss transformed their relationship into something deeper and more passionate than either had imagined possible. Jonas's quarters had become theirs, their nights filled with whispered conversations, gentle touches, and a love that grew stronger with each passing day. Ka had insisted on accompanying Jonas to their first rescue mission together, despite his protective instincts. Now, as they approached the seedy cantina on Titan Station, where intelligence suggested another auction would take place, she felt both nervous and determined. Remember? Jonas murmured, his hand briefly squeezing hers as they walked through the crowded marketplace. We're just traders looking for cargo. Don't let them see how much you care about the captives. It'll mark us as troublemakers. I'll under. Ka nodded, though her heart ached at the thought of seeing others in the condition she'd once been. I understand. The cantina's back room held a smaller, more exclusive auction than the one where they'd first met. Only a dozen buyers clustered around the platform where 3 captives stood. 2 humanoid aliens and a young human girl who couldn't be more than 16. Kaya's breath caught as she saw the girl's terrified expression, so similar to what her own must have been. Jonas's hand found hers, steadying her as the bidding began. We can't save them all, he whispered regretfully, not without blowing our cover and endangering the whole network. But when the human girl was brought forward and Ka saw the utter despair in her eyes, she couldn't stay silent. The girl, she whispered urgently, please, Jonas. He nodded grimly and entered the bidding. The price climbed higher than usual. Someone else wanted her badly. When Jonas finally won with a bid that would drain most of their emergency funds, Ka saw the dangerous gleam in the eyes of the man who'd been outbid. That was expensive. The man, a scarred tan with cybernetic implants, commented as they prepared to leave with their purchase. Must be something special about that one. Just like them, young and trainable, Jonas replied with a casual cruelty that made Kaya's skin crawl. Even knowing it was an act, they made it back to the ship without incident. But as they helped the girl who gave her name as Emma settle into guest quarters, Kaya noticed. Jonas seemed troubled. What is it? she asked later as they lay together, in their bed, her head on his chest. That buyer who was interested in Emma, I've seen him before, Valdez. He's not just a purchaser, he's connected to the people running the whole operation. Jonas's arms tightened around her. If he's suspicious of us, his concern proved prophetic. The next morning, as they prepared to jump to hyperspace, the ship's alarms began blaring. 3 vessels had dropped out of warp. Nearby, sleek military ships that dwarfed the starbound Hope. Surrender the ship and prepare to be boarded came. A transmission. This is a lawful seizure. Under Rim territory commerce codes. Jonas and Ka exchanged grim looks. There was nothing lawful about this. Take Emma and get to the escape pod. Jonas ordered, already moving toward the bridge. I'll treat a bayou. Time. No, Ka said firmly. We faced this together, remember, Kay? If they capture you again, then we make sure they don't. She moved to the weapons locker, her hands steady, despite her fear. You taught me to shoot, remember, and I know. Their tactics better than you do. The battle was brief but vicious. The starbound Hope's defensive systems were no match for military assault ships, but Jonas was a skilled pilot, and Kaya proved surprisingly effective at the gun controls. They managed to disable one attacker before their own ship took critical damage. Hull breach in Section C. Ka reported, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. Life support failing. Jonas fought with the controls, trying to reach the jump coordinates that would take them to safety, but it was too late. Boarding pods attached to their hull with metallic clangs that echoed through the ship. Remember, Jonas said as they prepared for the inevitable. They need us alive to find out what we know about the network that gives us time. Ka pressed her, lips to his in what might be their last kiss as free beings. I love you, she whispered. I love you too, he replied. Whatever happens, that's real. The airlock exploded inward and armed figures in combat armor poured through. Jonas pushed Ka behind him, shielding her with his buddy even as energy weapons trained on them. Both Captain Jonas Blackwood Valdez stepped through the smoke. His scarred face twisted in satisfaction. You've been very expensive to track down, but now we're going to have a long conversation about your little rescue network. As restraints closed around their wrists, Ka met Jonas's eyes and saw not defeat but determination. Their love had made them both stronger, and somehow, they would find a way through this darkness together. The Slaver stronghold was a repurposed asteroid mining station in a dead system, hidden from the major trader routes Kay had been separated from. Jonas immediately upon arrival thrown into a cell deep in the station's bowels, while he was taken to what the guards called interrogation. For 3 days she endured her own questioning, Valdez and his associates wanting to know about the rescue network, about Jonas's contacts, about their methods. She told them nothing, drawing strength from the memory of Jonas's kiss and the knowledge that every hour of silence might save other lives. On the 4th day, everything changed. Interesting news, my dear, Valdez said as he entered her cell, his cybernetic eye glowing in the dim light. Your captain is proving remarkably stubborn, hasn't said a word even under enhanced interrogation. He leaned closer, his breath reeking of stale tobacco. But perhaps he'll be more talkative if he watches you suffer ice-filled veins. But she kept her voice steady. He won't break for me any more than I'll break for him. Well, see, Valdez said with cruel satisfaction. The execution is scheduled for tomorrow public. Of course, we want to send a B message to any other would-be heroes about the price of interfering with our business. But Valdez had made a crucial error. In 3 days of captivity, Kaya had done more than just endure interrogation. She'd listened, learned, and most importantly made contact with other prisoners, including some who, like her, had been captured rather than born into slavery and still remembered what freedom looked like. That night, as the guards settled into their usual routine, Kaya put her plan into motion. The lock on her cell was electronic, but the Hadalway's been intuitive with growing things, and the station's bioneural circuits responded to her touch in ways their designers had never intended. When the door slid open with barely a whisper, she slipped into the corridor like a ghost. The other prisoners were ready. Emma, the human girl they'd rescued, had been confined to a work detail in the communication center. A Theorian engineer named Kovac had been forced to maintain the station's systems. A dozen others all waiting for someone to give them hope and a plan. The transmission array is sheer, Emma whispered as they gathered in the maintenance tunnels, her young face determined. Despite her fear, "If I can get a signal out, your people can find us and I can overload the power systems." Kovac added his forearms, gesturing in the complex sign language of his people. "Create enough chaos for aerial rescue." Kaya felt a fierce pride as she looked at these brave souls all ready to risk everything for a chance at freedom. "Then let's remind them that slaves can fight back." The rescue began at dawn. As Jonas was being dragged to what Valdez had planned as a public execution, explosions rocked the station. Emergency lights bathed everything in red as power systems failed throughout the complex. In the confusion, armed figures in the uniforms of the Galactic Rescue Coalition, Jonas's network poured through, breached airlocks. Kaya fought her way through, corridors filled with smoke and chaos. A liberated guard's weapon in her hand, sure only, thought to reach Jonas before it was too late. She found him in the station's central plaza, bloodied but alive, standing defiantly before Valdez's execution squad. "I love you," she called out, as she burst from cover, laying down covering fire that sent the executioners scrambling. "And I'm not losing you now." The battle for the station raged 4 hours, but the outcome was never truly in doubt. The slaves had become an army fighting with the desperation of those who had nothing left to lose and everything to gain. When the smoke cleared, Valdez lay dead and his organization was in shambles. Standing in the ruins of the slave market, surrounded by dozens of freed captives, Jonas pulled Kaya into his arms and kissed her with all the passion and relief of someone who had thought he'd lost everything. "Marry me," he said against her lips, loud enough for everyone to hear. Not as master to slave, not as rescuer to rescued, but as equal to equal, partner to partner. "Yes." Ka laughed, tears streaming down her face as the freed captives cheered around them. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Their wedding took place a month later aboard a coalition ship, with Emma serving as Kaya's maid of honor. Representatives from dozens of rescued species in attendance, as they exchanged vows, promises of partnership, equality, and love that transcended the boundaries of species and worlds. Their union became more than just a marriage. It became a symbol of hope, proof that love could triumph over hatred, that bonds forged in adversity could reshape the galaxy itself. And in the years that followed, as they continued their work together, rescuing the enslaved, hunting down traffickers, building a network of hope that spanned star systems, their love remained the constant at the center of it all, a reminder that sometimes the heart that saves you is also the one you choose to give yours to in return.